Welcome back, guys. Before we get into the Stars and also the Scorchers, just wanted to have a little bit of an update on our Heat, the Strikers, a couple of the other teams that we have gone through there. And with that first one, we have the Prime Minister's 11 squad is out. So we do miss Renshaw, we miss Niza, McSweeney, and also Jimmy Pearson are in that side. So they will be out for the first 2 games of that first round. Obviously, the Heat have 3 games in that one. So it does put a little bit more on some of the other guys that are left over in that side to really do the bulk of the work in that first 3 games. It's actually really tough to kind of figure that out because, you know, there's potential for guys to maybe miss a game as well. You got Spencer Johnson coming back from injury. You know, maybe he plays the first couple and has a rest for the third one, or has a rest in the middle or something like that. And then you've got, you know, Khawaja and Labuschagne playing in that first game as well. So I'll just be there for the first one. The other guys will come back for the third one. So there are a couple of guys that become pretty close to must-haves, in my opinion. Those guys like Colin Munro and Sam Billings, who are going to be near the top of that lineup and will be playing those 3 games. And then a couple of the cheaper guys in Paul Walter there as a mid-range type of player who will bat in the middle, potentially bowl a little bit, especially, you know, in that first or second game when, you know, Niza's not there, and you're missing a couple of those guys coming back in that final game, especially. So there's the guy to look at. Obviously, Swepson, you got Bartlett, you got Kuhneman, all these types of guys as well that are likely going to be in that squad for the majority of those 3 games, which is going to be pretty cool. So that's just something to note there. Obviously, with Heat playing the first 3 games in that first round, I should say. From there, Adelaide, nothing changes too much. We obviously do lose Rashid Khan, unfortunately, so he comes out of that side. Just replace him with Jamie Overton at the moment, and we'll find out a little bit more as to how they play this one with their fringies like Adam Jose and stuff like that as well. And do they bring in another spinner? Does Manenti become a little bit more important? There's a couple of things to think of, but strikers super important in round 2, given they are the only team on the double. So it might be worth starting with 1 or 2 and then looking to trade in 2 to 3 in that second round is kind of how I'm looking at it, to maximize our teams and our ability to get more players, more games on the park in that second round there. So that's the Strikers. Moving on to the Hurricanes. Again, nothing really changes with this squad from what we went through sort of 4 days ago there, which is cool. Just potentially here, do you select one of these guys to have on a bench? Is it a Caleb Jewell? Is it a Ben McDermott? Do you look to have Tim David, even though he's not going to play many doubles for the Canes there? That's a bit of a tough one for this squad, and they do become a little bit more valuable at the back end when they have their first double there. Renegades, obviously a team that we'll be looking at from the beginning of the season there, given they have a couple of doubles in that first 3 rounds. So Quinton de Kock is a maybe at this point. We still don't know if they've, they still haven't selected their team that's going to be playing India. Just at the start of the competition there. So does de Kock miss that? Does he stay? I still don't know at this point. So yeah, at this stage, it is a maybe until we find out. Otherwise, other guys on this list, obviously Joe Clark will bat up top, especially, and will be keeping, especially if Quinton de Kock's not there. So he has a little bit of my interest at that sort of, you know, a little bit above mid-range price there. Fraser McGurk, does he end up keeping that spot in the middle order? You know, especially if Quinton de Kock is out, then it's probably likely that that's the case. Then guys like Will Sutherland, can he take the next step, or will he at least score well? And we can take his points at that good price, along with guys like Tom Rogers, Kane Richardson, Zampa, and then lastly, I would say in that order there, him being the last there would be Majib as an interest of a guy that we think could really improve on this season. I think he's probably lower on that list when you're basing it on obviously value, but then the points that you can accumulate in these doubles that some guys like Sutherland, Rogers, Richardson, and obviously the batting in there of, you know, guys like Clark or Finch that can really do for you in that one there. We obviously went through all their players last week. So let's get into the Melbourne Stars. So we've got their definite batters in there of Stoinis, Maxwell, Bo Webster, and Sam Harper, and Webster is going to be out for the beginning, I believe, just with the way that that looks for that squad of theirs. So given that they play the first game, Webster is in that Prime Minister's 11, I believe. I'm pretty sure he is. So he'll miss that first one, and he'll be right for that second one. So that's a little bit frustrating, but it would likely mean that, you know, potentially Sam Harper is a guy that ends up on that opening batters list, I would say, at this point, you know, given he's one of their 4. in the game at the moment. So he's someone definitely to look at. Sam Harper along with Glenn Maxwell is pretty close to that must-have. Stars have 3 doubles in the first 5 rounds. So they do have a bye in that second round, but in that one you can use those guys as loopers. So it depends how many you obviously take in that first round. If you're looking to take probably 2 to 3, then I think that's fine. 4, you just need to have a bit of a plan and make sure that all of your other players, even in your on your bench there, are likely to be playing in round 2, so you can use them as starting players and you're not missing out on getting just a player in general in round 2, and you can actually focus on getting strikers into your side. So yeah, very interesting, the batting side of things for the Stars. And I do think you have to pick 2 out of these 3 as well. So Burns, Cartwright and Larkin. There's a great chance obviously with Harry Brook out now, with Bo Webster out in that first game, that you might see all 3 of those batsmen, or they just go for the allotment of bowlers here in this one. They obviously do lose Mark Steketee as well to kick things off in this tournament. So yeah, Coulter-Nile, Harris Ralph, Osama Mir and Tom Rogers are going to be really, really important across in this squad here, which is going to be cool. So all these guys that you need to be looking at for sure, because Stars are a super important team. And I think you go with, as I said, maybe the 2 to 3 range prior to round 1. And then you add a few more in round 3 after they've had their bye, and they have the doubles, the double in round 3 and the double in round 5. It's really, really important to load up on Stars either before the first round or definitely in round 3 for that mid stretch of the season. And then you can start offloading some of your Melbourne Stars players following that round 5 effort there. So yeah, bowling there, obviously there's a few guys of interest, but we'll discuss them now that we're going into have a look at the squad here in the Melbourne Stars on the app there. So Sam Harper at 130k, averaged 42 last year. So again, you're looking to get Harper with potential, if he's to open the batting, have a little bit more value there. For one, they've got a projected 3-round average for him at 49. And if he can get there and get a couple of good scores, get away to a good start in a team that should be pretty solid, then I think he has a little bit of value. Otherwise, even if he doesn't have the value, you're going to get the points out of him. And with all the doubles available, he's going to be super important for you and your side. We saw there what Webster was able to do last year at a 56 average. Was super, super amazing. And we've got some lower scores from guys like, obviously lower prices there as well, with Maxwell and Stoinis at 118 and 116,000 respectively. And yeah, as I said, Maxwell, super important, given he's got 3 doubles in the first 5. Stoinis, is he going to bowl much? We're unsure at this point. Is his batting enough at this point to do really, really well? Potentially. But I still think that close to that 40, 45 average could be pretty normal for him, unless he happens to get back into a breakout type of season, which he definitely could do. I find him a little bit more of a risk than maybe Sam Harper, especially if he's got the keeping as well, which he does have the keeping, where Stoinis, if he's not bowling, just having him as a bat option can be a little bit frustrating. But maybe he's one of those guys that you don't have for round 1, but you pick him up in round 3 if you see that he's in a little bit of form and should be able to do pretty well from there. Sorry guys, made a mistake with Tom Rogers. They had him in the bowlers, but he's actually in the batting side, in that batting area in that one. So he'll be one of those guys that slots in as well, somewhere in that top 5. So I forgot to put him in there as a definite batter. Hilton Cartwright, we've seen here, so he got average 29. Yeah, Larkin the 24, Joe Burns the 1 game for 18. So what's going to happen with those 3 guys? We're going to see Campbell Kellaway at some point. He obviously played 9 games last year, but you've got Joe Burns coming back into that fold. How do they play that? Obviously, Campbell didn't score super well last year, so does he come in if there's an opportunity through an injury or something like that? It's probably how it's going to look after giving these other guys a chance first, who are a little bit more established, you would say there. And then the bowling side of things, you got guys like Coulter-Nile, who you can start with fairly comfortably. Played 11 games last year, averaged 55. So if you're looking for a good point scoring start, then he's definitely another one of those guys that you could look to. Obviously, guys like Harris Ralph and Osama Mir, both bowl first options. Coulter-Nile can come in and bang a few at the end with the bat. And obviously that's where a bit of his value comes and why he scored so well in previous years. Stekety's going to be out for the start of this tournament, obviously just the very start, and he'll be back. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they use all of their quicks and how they use Osama Mir in this scenario as well. But both those guys coming in at 125 is still a decent price there. But I would like to see how they play first before selecting him. You do have a few people that are going for him with Ralph at 5%, Osama Mir at 1%. But I would definitely be waiting to see on those guys. And then you have the cheaper guys in Paris. And obviously Brody Couch that played a few games last year. Joel Paris the 9 and Brody the 1. So that's the Stars at the moment. They're a very interesting outfit. I would like to see how they line up for that first game. Obviously, given it is the first one there, you can look at how you think their batting lineup and so their bowling lineup's going to look and make some decisions come that toss, especially if we get a little bit more of an idea coming in to that first game there. So now let's look into our second team, being the Scorchers for this video here. Batters, we just lose Crawley for the first round. So he'll miss the first 2 games, it looks like, playing the one-day internationals, not the T20s at this stage. You then have guys like Josh Inglis, who are obviously super important. Cooper Connolly, potentially some value at the cheap price. You got Ashton Turner in the middle there. Sam Whiteman, potentially opening or could be in the middle. Laurie Evans, you got Aaron Hardy. They have a super strong batting lineup. Once everyone's back, especially with Crawley being there, if Inglis is back straight away, it's going to be super important for them. He will be anyway. On the bowling side, Agar's coming on and off from injury, so will he be there for round 1 potentially? Andrew Tye, Berendorf, Lance Morris, and Jai Richardson is an incredible bowling outfit, and they will be a great side again. Hardy, does he get the overs? That's going to be the question, or if he's just going to be that middle order dominating man with the bat like he was last season. A couple of fringy guys obviously as well, but yeah, I think it's going to take a couple of those guys to be out for them to get in, and then Mitch Marsh comes back in later in the tournament there. So let's get into a few of these guys here with the Scorchers. So we'll filter that one out now, and the Perth boys will come into it. So we'll start with our wicketkeeper. Obviously, it is Whiteman or it is Inglis, and depending on how that plays out, if Inglis happens to get injured, then Whiteman becomes a really, really important option, especially through that later part of the season. Once they get through their 2 lots of buys, they have a couple of doubles in a row. So he could be a really cheap guy to bring in at that point, depending on how he's gone at the start. Maybe he hits some form there, and he becomes really important, or he's someone that you could start with if you see him batting higher up the order. Inglis is an interesting one because he is our best wicketkeeper bat at the moment, but there are a lot of value wicketkeeper batsmen at this point of the season. Looking to the batsmen, obviously Mitch Marsh we won't talk about for a little while. Aaron Hardy's an interesting one at 178k. Does he have the extra value on top? I don't really see it personally. He's owned by 20%. I think you're paying for what you're getting there with his output, especially if he's unable to bowl too many, just with the amount of really, really high quality bowlers that they have in their side. Agar being one of them, obviously, is a little bit underpriced, I would say, but coming off a bit of an injury, I think we can leave him out. I had him sort of penciled in my side for a while there, but he will be out at this point from my side. Laurie Evans, they have projected a really high 55 3-round average there, so that's pretty solid overall. And what you're looking at there from him is a guy that didn't play last season. He's 105k and could be very, very interesting in that order that they have. Obviously, the main worry here for the Scorchers is that they have so many good players and they have to fit them all into certain spots. So dependent on where he fits in that order, is going to be, is going to determine how well that he scores on a regular basis there. Cooper Connolly, we saw him, did pretty well in a couple of games last season, and could definitely come out and do pretty well again for the Scorchers if he gets that opportunity at some point. Maybe it is round 1 with Crawley out. Maybe it is later down the track. And then we got Hobson in there as well, 62k. All right, so we go to the bowlers, and it's a very interesting start. Like, do you stick with a Jai Richardson who's coming back from a bit of an injury as well? Do you play him in that first game, given he has an 80 average, which is absolutely incredible what he can do with the ball in hand, especially in the Big Bash here. So 247k. If you do start with him, he's a clear straight swap to Matt Short in round 2, which is potentially what I'm looking at. He is currently in my side. I just took him out to use this video. So Richardson and Lance Morris are 2 guys that are in my side at the moment that could really come out and dominate. Obviously, you see the 80 average and the 72.5 in lesser games for both of them. But are 2 guys that can come in and dominate, but they do have their risks as well, given they're super fast bowlers and they sometimes have injury risk as well. So 2 guys to look at. Your consistent player, obviously, is Andrew Tye in this one. Second most BBL wickets and continues to dominate each and every year and averages 60. So, yeah, he bowls these 4 overs. He bowls the death overs. It's, kind of standard that he's picking up at least a wicket a game. basically, and then whatever can come on off that with the economy rates and everything like that. So a couple of interesting guys there. Always love having Berendorf in my side. He can come out and big up 2 for 12 off 3 off 4 pretty comfortably some games, and other games it just doesn't happen, so hence the 57 average. But he's really fun to watch if you like someone like that, and he's very, very consistent in what he does in this team, especially being a really, really strong side there, and opening the bowling always helps. Obviously, you're definitely getting at least that few overs at the start. Sometimes they bowls at 3 or 4 in a row, so you get all those overs done. Okay, going from there, you got Matt Kelly. Unfortunately, probably doesn't make this side at the start of the season, but a 47 average. He will get a chance at some point and, may become valuable, but being a fringe guy at this point, it's probably a little bit of a worry to have in your side. And then Hamish McKenzie from there at 42k. So one of those cheap guys that are in the game at the moment that aren't going to be of as much importance at this stage. There will be a stage to use a guy for a loop. I don't think that's round 1. I think you're looking to... Obviously, round 1 is probably the only one there where you're not going to have someone on a bye in your side. So I think you just load it up with some really, really good talent. And you can potentially have one of these guys that are playing a double, like a Fraser McGurk on the bench. If he comes out and gets a 70 in the first game, then you could bring in a cheap guy like a McKenzie or something like that playing in a later game that you can use as a looper if you really want that score in the first one, if it happens to be something crazy like that. But for the most part, we won't need to use loopers, I don't think. You're likely to have 1, potentially 2 on the bye each and every round. So that's that on those next 2 teams, guys. We are getting closer now, under 10 days until first game, and I'm super excited for that one. They're the Brisbane Heat up against the Melbourne Stars, because we will see Khawaja and we will see Marnus in that first one, which is going to be cool, up against obviously Stoyne and Maxwell. Is going to be super fun there in that one. I look forward to it, and I hope this is helping with your sides, guys. Make sure you do join the league that I've created. I'll pop that in the description below if you haven't done so yet. Hopefully you've made it to the end of the video, and join our overall league. That's going to be plenty of fun. See you guys.